You know, Eric, on this show, time and time again, founders talk about the importance of hiring great employees.
And they always say it's so hard and so important early on to hire the right person.
It makes a lot of sense that it's difficult because most founders don't have experience doing high-level searches or hiring top-level talent.
And they're also limited to their local talent pool a lot of the times.
That's why a lot of founders choose to work with SPMB, one of the fastest growing executive search firms in the country. For over 40 years, SPMB has specialized in recruiting upper management and board members to early stage VC-funded startups and larger growth stage companies too.
They bring the knowledge of a large global firm and combine it with the personalized service and attention of a boutique.
They have a dedicated team focusing on the Mountain West and Midwest emerging tech markets, so no matter where you are in the country, if you're trying to hire top-level talent, SPMB can help you out.
If that sounds like you can go to upside.fm/SPMB to learn how they are closing hundreds of C-level searches annually.
Actually, McKinsey did an amazing analysis about the companies that are already listed in the Latin America Stock Exchange. And usually the companies that have women in the top management are performing better, around 40% better.
The startup investment landscape is changing, and world-class companies are being built outside of Silicon Valley. We find them, talk with them, and discuss the upside of investing in them. Welcome to Upside.
Woo!
Hello, and welcome to the Upside Podcast, the first podcast finding upside outside of Silicon Valley. I'm Jay Klaus, and I'm accompanied by my co-host, Mr. Financial Innovator himself, Eric Hornum.
That's what they call me, Jay. Mr. Financial Innovator. I'm just out there innovating on finance.
That's what I call you. I think anytime we get on the topic of finance, investing, you're like, let me tell you about this different model I'm thinking about.
I think that finance we went through this crazy period in the 80s where there was so much financial innovation, and a lot of that ended up being some pretty bad stuff, but there was so much going on in the world of finance, and it was where the smartest people were spending their time thinking about how to finance things differently. The same thing kind of happened in the 1880s, the JP Morgan type era, the Gilded Age. And I think we're kind of on the precipice of another era of thinking critically about how we finance things and what we can use and do to allocate capital differently.
And it's no secret that on this show, we have a little bit of an affinity towards financial innovation with some of the coffee chats we have on the show, from Earnest Capital in the early days to Tiny Seed to Clearbank, Mainvest.
We talk to family offices. We talk to corporate. When there is a different type of product out there, it is particularly interesting to me. So this show is definitely over leveraged on financial innovation, but I believe that we're somewhere it's going to be cool. The fractionalization of everything. We're developing theories here, Jay.
Rally, good point.
We're developing theories on the podcast about finance, and the benefits of financial innovation is that I believe this round of financial innovation is expanding access to capital.
And that is what today's episode is all about. We are talking to Karla Gallardo, the CEO of Viwala, which is based in Mexico City. Viwala provides loans for companies led by women that adapts to the monthly sales of their business. Eric, the model actually does remind me of Clearbank, but I may be thinking about this incorrectly.
I think you're thinking about it correctly, and it'll come out in the interview as we talk a little bit more about it. But I think it's a similar type of model, but rather than Clearbank's, which is based on Stripe data, this is focused more niche and on micro businesses that are women owned and led.
We were introduced to Karla and Viwala through New Ventures, our friends we've been in touch with for a couple of years now, actually. New Ventures is based in Mexico City and helps businesses accelerate. It finances businesses. It connects people within that ecosystem. Shout out to Anna Gastelum for getting us connected. The Viwala initiative was born from the New Ventures Group vision of financing small and medium-sized enterprises that have a positive impact on the community. Over time, they say they realized a greater challenge, which was that access to credit for women entrepreneurs is very limited, and the companies that perform better seem to be those that have women in strategic positions.
I love the vision of what they're trying to set up, of what they're building, and I think it's going to impact a lot of people's lives, Jay.
It's going to help a lot more people live the one life that they have the best way they can, just like our friends over at Ethos Wealth Management. If you're interested in wealth management, or if you want to live your one life the best way that you can, you might want to visit our friends over at Ethos Wealth Management by going to upside.fm/ethos.
We're going to hop in this interview. If anything sticks out to you and you want to chat with us, you can reach out to us on Twitter at UpsideFM or send us something a little longer, hello@upside.fm. And we'll get to that interview right after this. I hate that we've demonized scheduling links, Jay.
Scheduling links are actually one of my favorite things. I love the ease of someone saying, here's when you can book a time with me, and then I can choose when it's best for me too.
Whenever I get an outreach and someone says, what time looks good for you? I ask them, hey, do you have a scheduling tool? And you know what scheduling tool I wish they had?
Which one is that?
It's a new scheduling tool called SavvyCal. SavvyCal makes it easy for both parties to find the best time to meet.
SavvyCal makes the scheduling process even more savvy than any other scheduling tool that I've seen, and I mean that. It makes it so easy to personalize your link. You can say, hey, this is a meeting time for Jay and Eric, and it just looks so professional, so sophisticated.
So much so that we're going to be using it for Upside going forward, and maybe even rolling it out to the Upside network.
You can use SavvyCal as well. You can sign up for a free account at savvycal.com/upside. That's SavvyCal.com/upside. And when you're ready to upgrade to a paid plan, you can use the promo code UPSIDE for a free month.
I'm Mexican. I born in Mexico City a lot of years ago already. 38 years ago, imagine that. And I'm an economist. I studied in a Mexican university, Universidad Panamericana, economy. And then it's very fun because I got my first job in New Ventures, Mexico. That is fun because then later on, 10 years later, I came back to lead Viwala. Afterwards, I did an MBA in the Netherlands. And then I came back, I did 3 years in private equity in Mexico City too, investing in SMEs in Mexico. Very, very interesting because this fund were looking for companies that were in transition between generations. So we jumped there and we invest and we bought some companies and then we sold them. Then afterwards, I spent 8 years of my life launching companies in the agriculture and forestry industry. So I spent 8 years doing that. Amazing. I really love it. I love the agriculture. I think there is a huge potential. And then afterwards, because personal issues, like I were looking for less traveling because I were traveling like crazy because imagine the agriculture is not in Mexico City, of course. So we were traveling around the world and in Mexico. So I needed to stop. So I started looking for a new adventure. And I talked again to Rodrigo Villar, who is the director and the founder of New Ventures Mexico, my first boss, by the way. And then we together decided to put together Viwala. And now I'm leading Viwala, very happy, already for 2 years. And in this amazing adventure to try to give financing to women and to social and environmental companies.
Where did the inspiration for Viwala come from? You said private equity, agriculture, and now Viwala. So where did the first idea come from?
If I have to mention one word of my career and my experience is starting things. This is one word. And the second word is small and medium enterprises in Mexico. So when Rodrigo and I were talking about this, we realized, and because first the experience of Rodrigo and myself launching SMEs in Mexico, there are a lot of SMEs in Mexico and in Latin America, but there is very few options for financing because in Mexico, what is going on is that we have in one side the microfinance, which is for very little companies They're super good that they are this option. But then we have the other more traditional options like venture capital, private equity, and banks. And what happened with the small and medium enterprises in Mexico is that the most of them are not a target for the venture capital and private equity, because these guys are looking for rockets, like these disruptive business models. And the SMEs, that is the way that I call the small and medium enterprises in Mexico. These SMEs, some of them are starting and they are not ready for the venture capital and the private equity. But the other ones, which are the majority, they have more traditional business models. So that means that they are super good business, they are generating value for the economy, but they are not a target for the venture capital and the private equity. So, and we saw that, for instance, in New Ventures, New Ventures has a business accelerator and already passed through around 1,000 companies. We can say like just 20 of those receive private equity or venture capital funds. What happened with the other ones? The other ones are super good companies and they are generating deep impact because we just work with impact companies. So we decided that we need to launch a financial instrument that can help these kind of companies to really grow in the way they have to grow, not necessarily in this rocket type, but we can help them to be better and bigger. So that's the reason why we started Viwala.
You mentioned venture capital, private equity, and banks. What's the banking culture like in Mexico for these SMEs?
Look, the thing in Mexico with the banks is that they are looking for companies a little bit bigger. Like the requirements are, I'm sorry, I am going to talk in Mexican pesos, but I'm gonna try to do the translation into dollars. They are looking for companies with 5 years already existing, at least 5 million pesos in revenue, which is around $250 per year, and they are looking for a guarantee, like a house, a building, these kind of guarantees. And unfortunately, the most of the SMEs in Mexico don't have that. They don't have the 5 years, or sometimes they don't have in revenues at 250 per year. So that's why in Mexico there are a lot of financial non-banking institutions, as Viwala is, that are looking for these companies because these companies need money. Imagine a company that is growing. They need a lot of money for working capital. Like I like to, in my mind, the typical company that we are looking for is a company that, imagine, you decided to launch a business of organic food, and you are doing very well. One day, Walmart knocked your door, or you knocked Walmart door, and then Walmart say, okay, guys, I like it. Come and start selling in 5 stores as a pilot. And then you did very well. And one day, Walmart knock and say, hello, guys, I love it. You have to go to 10 or to 20 stores or to 15 stores or national. In Mexico, it's a huge country. So if that happens, you will convert you have to grow very quick, and you need money to produce, to hire people, to transport, to do everything, to pack in. So these kind of companies are the companies that we are looking for mainly.
From the entrepreneur's side, from the owner's side, how is revenue-based capital lending, financing, whatever you call it, how is it perceived?
Look, it depends. Depends. First, we call it revenue-based lending because we are trying to do the differentiation between the financing, what is happening in venture capital and private equity. What we did is that we transform that into the lending, which was super difficult, to be honest. Very, very difficult because of legal issues and accounting issues. All that and all the tax regulation, they don't understand these kind of instruments. But we did it, and we are doing that right now. And the perception from the entrepreneur is super good. They really like it. Because when you approach entrepreneur and you say, okay, you have to pay me, depends of your sales. And if your sales are 0, you have to pay me 0. They really like it. Actually, with the pandemic, helped a lot to our clients, to our portfolio companies. But the problems that we are having is more in the funding side. investors, as you understand, a company like Viwala, the business is to bring money and then lend that money, So what is happening is that the investors are struggling to understand that because they are used to the private equity or venture instruments, or in the other side, the lend, but the traditional lend. When we have we are like a hybrid. They struggling a little bit. We are struggling to sell that. Fortunately, we have very good investors. We have a lead investor. It's a family office in Mexico, and they really trust in us. And we already have an investor too in the States, and we are growing. But we have to do 20 calls and maybe 2 understand the instrument. But it's part of the job, It's something that we knew it since the beginning, and it's part of our job. We have to sell this new financial instrument that is working very well.
I don't know much at all about the culture or political climate there. Like, how much is there to wrestle with from a policy standpoint or a political standpoint? Is that a battle that you have to fight uphill against?
No, I mean, in Mexico, what is going on right now is that, unfortunately, from the side of the government, is nothing about entrepreneurs. But we are coming, before this administration, let's say, we have a specific institution from the government working with entrepreneurs. So they did a lot for the entrepreneurship environment. Now this new administration is doing nothing. But the good thing is that the ecosystem is really strong in Mexico about entrepreneurship. We have a lot of entrepreneurs. Little kids now want to be entrepreneur, because if you asked me this question 20 years ago, it's very fun, because when we started New Ventures, I started with Rodrigo New Ventures 16 years ago already. We started with this thing that we call it sustainable business. And nobody understand that. And we were looking for this ecosystem. Then, as I mentioned, I went to the Netherlands to study my master. And then when I came back, I realized that this ecosystem was super big, super strong. There are a lot of accelerators, funds, VC funds, PE funds, companies like Viwala. They are trying to invest in the missing middle companies. I think the ecosystem is doing very well, although the government is not helping. The fintech, for instance, which is an industry that Viwala is part of, because we are totally working with technology, so we call it ourselves a fintech too. It's amazing in Mexico. I don't know if you know, but the Mexican fintech law is one of the more advanced in the world, and it's growing. I just read a report that the fintech industry in Mexico got much more money than in other countries in Latin America. So it's doing very well. So we still need this part of the government, but that happened, it's not just politics. So maybe when we put this party away again, it's coming, and we have to wait. And I think the entrepreneurs now are we understand that the play. So it's just like this.
When you were launching Viwala, what was I read about the idea of gender lens investing. We haven't talked about that much yet. How important or critical was that to the thesis behind Viwala?
It's super important, Eric. What happened is that, as I mentioned, we are coming from new ventures. It's like our father. Viwala is a joint venture between private money and new ventures. And for new ventures, as well as for Viwala, we are looking to invest only in companies that are generating impact. So in the past, impact means for new ventures just social companies, environmental companies. But now with Viwala, we bring another vertical, let's say, which is gender. And the reason why we consider a women-led or a gender lens company as an impact is because 2 important things. The first one is because when a woman earn money, usually she invests between the 70 to the 90% of that money in your family. So that generates a positive cycle, that it generates development and social development. So this is the one reason. And the second reason is a business reason. And it's because there is a lot of data and it's a lot of literature. McKinsey, the IFC, the IDB, all of them are already wrote about that, and some others. But in general, they say that when the more diverse is a team, a management team, the better results. And actually, McKinsey did an amazing analysis about the companies that are already listed in the Latin America Stock Exchange. And usually, the companies that have women in the top management are performing better, around 40% better in terms of return of investment and profits. So it's a good business too. So when we put together social development and a good business, we decided that we have to jump there. And the other important thing, because Viwala is also we are a startup too. Although we are lending, we are a startup too. So the opportunity is super big. In Latin America, the gender gap for companies, for SMEs in Latin America is 93 billion American billion. So it's huge. So we need to find a way to fill that gap. The financial gap, I mean. So that's the reason why we decided to go for women-led. And it's super important, Eric. We just invest or we just lend to companies that are women-led, that are led by a male, but have a direct beneficial for women and girls, or are a social company or environmental company. If it's not one of these companies, we don't lend to those companies.
You mentioned that you're a startup as well. You guys were founded in 2017, I believe. Is that correct?
We started operations in January 2019.
So what's changed in the last 4 years for Viwala? There was an idea.
Everything.
Okay, maybe bucket those down for me. What's been the biggest change for Viwala?
Look, I like to be super honest, because from the mistakes we have to learn. So when we started Viwala, we decided that we want to have like a fund, but in a little scale, big mistake. It's not possible, because when we did the easy numbers, we realized that we are doing tickets, very little tickets, between 20,000 to 250,000 American dollars. So if we want to do these kind of tickets, we need to do a lot of companies, and the cost of a fund is super expensive. So and the other thing is that we need to raise money all the time. So the legal structure of a fund didn't work for Viwala. So we decided to move to this financial non-banking institution. So we are a normal legal entity. In Mexico, we call it SAPI-DCB. But we are not a fund. So this is one of the things, the first thing that we learn. The second one is that the way we have to lend to the women it has to be different. And the reason what happened is that we started Viwala, we had the money, we opened the door, we advertised it everywhere, and then the women didn't came. Imagine that. I was like freaking out. and then what we did is that we started to talk to a lot of women owners of companies, potential clients. We did a lot. And we realized that in order to lend to women, we have to do more than just lending, because women, we have a different way to assess the risk. It's not that women don't like the risk. That's not true. Women like the risk. What happened is that we assess differently. We have to be more sure that we can pay rather a male, So what we and the other thing is that usually the female, what happened with us is that the more of the women don't have finance training. So when we put together the possibility to take a loan, considering their lack in finance, the women feel very uncomfortable. So what we decided to do is that now we have a technical assistance we call bootcamp. And in this bootcamp, we are helping women with different capabilities in terms of business and also balanced life. And this is helping us to create a community. And through this technical assistance, the community, and the right instruments, which is this revenue-based loan, we are now growing. So this was the first. And the third one, that happened first is this idea to become a fintech. But because the other thing that we realize is that and this happened for women-led companies as well as for regular companies. What happened in Mexico and in Latin America is that the small and medium enterprises are usually a one-man show. So this one-man show usually sale, do the finance, do the accountant, has to ask for the credit. So if we ask for a lot of requirements, we ask for a lot of paperwork, they really struggle a lot. And it's the first problem that is not helping them to get the credit, because if they go to the bank, they ask for a lot of things. So what we did is that now we have a technology that connects us with a tax office in Mexico. So the only thing that we need when a company applies to Viwala is that they enter there, they leave us with all the security standards, of course, is encrypted, their tax ID. And with that tax ID, we go directly to the tax office, we bring all the information, we did all the data and the analysis. And with this, we are able to give them a loan or not. But usually it took us 2 days, 3 days to do the analysis. Then takes a little bit more, all the legal paperwork and these kind of things, but we are giving loans into 10 days, the most of them. So is what we are doing right now. So this is the big learnings, I think.
So I want to dive into that second learning a little bit for you personally. You mentioned you worked in private equity for a few years. You were launching agricultural businesses. I would say that it sounds like you have a very high level of financial training. What was it like personally for you to have the realization that maybe it was a little different for a lot of other women around Mexico?
Very good question, Eric. Nobody asked me that before. No, I think as a personal learning is that I mean, because of my background, I'm an economist, then I did an MBA, and I work in, as you mentioned, in private equity and launching companies. For me, it's like very normal, this thing about the finance and the numbers and the budgets and these kind of things. But then I learned that I have to think about the majority, and no, the majority is not like me, thanks God. Very boring, imagine. I prefer the other one. And it was super interesting because I personally did a lot of interviews, a lot of coffees with friends and some other women that are not my friends, just to try to understand what happened. Because we did, of course, a market research about the opportunity and about more like business variables. But again, I'm super happy to see that at the end it's about humans and how humans perform. And thanks God it's like this. Otherwise, we will be living in the machine, in the machine world. So it was a surprise, to be honest. I didn't expect that. And actually, I was the one that said, and they are scared. When I really understand that in general, women are not scared, we just assess differently the risk. For me, it was a super big learning, to be honest. So now what we learn is that we need to focus a lot and try to really understand what is going on in with these kind of entrepreneurs. And when you think about it, I mean, I think it's something that I miss because imagine if I was looking to launch a business for a kid, for sure I would do a lot of focus groups and understanding about the kid, how the kid think, how the kid assess things, how the kid take risks, these kind of things. And we didn't do that because we made the same mistake as everyone in the world, thinking that male and females are the same, and we are not the same. So very interesting.
You mentioned that there's a lot of selling and storytelling that you need to do for these investors. You mentioned, you have these statistics of how well women-led companies do historically, but you're still taking big bets yourself with investor capital. So how do you think about, or what makes you so certain that you're able to find the right companies with female-led founders so that you can actually return that investor capital?
First, we are measuring everything. So that's a good thing to work with technology. You can do numbers about everything. So usually every month we do a balance. This is one thing. The second thing, we already have almost 2 years lending, and our portfolio is performing very well. We have problems with one company, that's it. And the most of the women, all the 100%, let me think, yes, the 100% of the women-led companies are paying on time. We have some others that they have some, they have some problems like 1-2 days, a month that they don't pay, then they pay. The most of them, at least in the Viwala portfolio, and this is a fact, are with male. The women are paying always on time. This is one thing. Of course, I think with the time, we will have more information and will be easier. And of course, we have all the information about the microfinance. That's helping a lot because the microfinance have a lot of information about how the women are better payers as a male. I understand that it's different, the size of the company and education and everything, but at the end, I think it's part of the behavior and how women feels comfortable. And the women like to be like with no problems. And that means pay everything on time and these kind of things. This is one thing. And the second thing, Jay, is that the problem that we are looking with potential investors is not the women. Is not that the fact that we are investing in women, is the fact that we are doing revenue-based. This is the thing that they are a little bit scaring about. Is more the instrument. And again, to solve that, is the same. We need to show some track record and how the companies are performing and how we are performing with this kind of instrument. So at the end, we are in this stage that we are using funders. Of course, we already have some debt lines, which is the next step. So we can say that we are in the second step. We started lending from our equity. And now we started in January lending from a debt line. So let's see with the time.
How long do you think you would need to have this rolling and have investments that you've made to kind of show these numbers that you're measuring to say, yes, this is working? How long do you think you'll need to be in market making those investments to make these investor conversations easy?
My expectation is 2 more years. Like we already have almost 2 years. In January, let's 1 year and a half we can say. And I think in 2 more years, 24 months, more or less. Because what's going to happen in 24 months is that we will still allocating and the old loans we will start paying completely the loan. So we can show how we are doing. Actually, this month a company just sell very well, and they did super well because they catch a very good contract, so they are repaying the full contract. Because works like this, like I don't know if you know how it works, but a revenue-based loan is, instead of having like a loan with specific payments already set since the beginning, like when you buy a car, you go and buy a car and they give you this amortization table, What we do is that we set a percentage of the sales. So you have to pay me this percentage every month. So imagine it's 5%. So if you sell 100, the 5% of 100. If you sell more, then you have to pay me a little bit more because the 5% of 200 is more, But if you sell 0, 5% of 0 is 0. Your payment is 0. So what happened with this company just now in April is that they got an amazing contract. So they have money, and because of the revenue, they have to pay a lot to Viwala, but besides that, they have already money. So they decided to repay the credit. So for us, it's like a very success story, So that's the main idea. It's like a combination between a venture capital investment and a loan. But it's not a conversion debt. It's different because it's the way that we are charging the loan, the main thing.
You mentioned earlier that a fund structure would be too expensive. You're running this as more of a traditional entity. In the States, we call it a corporation or a LLC, depending on how you structured it. How do your investors get liquidity back?
Okay, very interesting question. We have two kinds of investors. The first one is the equity investors, and I'm going to talk about them at the end. And the second kind of funders is through a debt too. So they give a loan to Viwala and Viwala give a loan to the client, So the way that these guys are earning money is that we offer them a specific interest rate, and that's it. Actually, we are trying to do revenue-based lending also with them. We didn't do that yet, but I'm looking for that. I will. But usually we are offering them an interest rate, and they gain like this. In the case of the equity investors, it's like a regular company. So we have a business plan. Of course, this business plan takes in consideration the amount of money we are lending. And in a specific moment, we have a break even, and then we start to generate money. So we have two options. We can use that money to lend, or we can pay as a dividend. So it's part of that. So actually, the business model of a company that Viwala is very easy.
Very cool. Well, this has been fascinating. Karla, if people want to find out more about you or Viwala or New Ventures, where should they go?
Okay, myself in LinkedIn. There is myself. I'm here. And of course, if they want to send me an email, of course, my email is Karla with K @viwala.com. And about Viwala, we have of course, in our webpage, which is viwala.com, or in Instagram or Facebook, we are like Viwala MX. We are there, and we are super happy always to answer questions and talk with people.
Eric, do you know what my favorite part about podcast advertisements is?
That people actually listen to them?
Wow, you read my mind. It's almost like we've done this twice now. Yes, that people actually listen to them. Look, you're listening right now, dear listener.
And me. I'm listening too. I'm listening to you, Jay, here on the Upside Podcast.
And if you have a message that you want to share with the Upside audience, people who care about startups, investing, the middle of the country, this is a really great place to put that message.
Because people will listen to it. And if you have an event, or you just want to get something out about your brand, you're hiring, this is the perfect place for the upside.fm/classifieds. That's our classified ad that can run on 1 to 5 podcast episodes.
That's right. Typically, we lock in sponsors for longer sponsorships, but we wanted to make this accessible to you and your message. If you have a message to share with our audience, go to upside.fm/classifieds and get your ad on the airwaves. All right, Eric, we just spoke with Karla Gallardo, the CEO of Viwala, once again speaking about financial innovation here on the show. What stuck out to you about Viwala's model or about this opportunity?
Well, the model's great. I love the idea of providing more access to capital. It reminded me a little bit of microloans. I know we touched on those a bit, but honestly, the thing that impressed me the most was Karla. She was incredible.
And she's doing something new in an environment that's difficult. You can tell that telling this story and getting this new model out there and supported is not an easy task, has not been an easy task, but she's chipping away and she's making it happen.
As we've said on the podcast for a while now, innovating on structure is much harder than innovating on content.
Say more about that.
So if you were to launch a venture capital fund and instead of funding software, you fund consumer products and you use the exact same structure, you have the same management fee, the same carry, the structure has been created. People can understand that it's a venture capital fund that's investing in X, Y, or Z, or maybe X, Y, and Z. That's innovating on content. Innovating on structure is saying, what if I rethought how we invest? I'm not going to do the 3-3-3-1 model, which is 3 losers, 3 1x, 3 with a little bit of gain and 1 home run. I'm going to do a model that is 10 singles, or I'm going to do a model that is the return profile is different. That's innovating on structure because you're challenging the assumptions that are conventional in the fund model. You can also innovate on structure by changing the actual dynamics, the legal entities, the tax setup. She talked a little bit about that. Innovating on structure is really hard because you have to explain to somebody a thesis on why you're doing something, and you generally don't have anything else to point to say, look, it works.
It's like you're doing 2 hard things. The concept itself is already difficult to find the companies you want to invest in, for example, but then you also have to convince people that the model should be different than what it's been historically. You're pitching 2 things at one time. It's challenging.
It is challenging. And we're going to run into that at Upside. To take it selfish for a second here, podcasting isn't local. by nature. So we kind of feel the innovating on structure thing. And I think that the biggest returns, and this is why we're so excited about what Viwala is building, what Clearbank's building, what Earnest Capital is building, what Rally Road's building, what Mainvest is building, they're innovating on structure. And I think that's where the biggest potential for change and returns is. It's going to allow the world to do things differently.
And we innovated in our own way here, talking to somebody outside of the United States, which is something we don't typically do, but are open to doing from time to time with good reason. And so if you have a company that you would like for us to talk to that may not be based in the United States, but you think fits the Upside vibe and ethos, and I'm not talking about our friends at Ethos Wealth Management at upside.fm/ethos. I am talking about the way we go about things. You should introduce us to them on Twitter at UpsideFM or email us hello@upside.fm. And we'll talk to you next week. That's all for this week. Thanks for listening. We'd love to hear what you think about this episode, so tweet at us at UpsideFM or email us hello@upside.fm and let us know. You can learn more about us and browse our entire back catalog of episodes at upside.fm. And if you love our show, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts. That goes a long way in helping us bring high-quality guests to the show.
Rocky, I'm Sylvester. Underrated.